Hello and welcome back, my friends. This motorbike video is going to be a little different from usual. On this occasion it's not my Zero DSR I'm riding, and indeed not a Zero of any kind, but an electric motorbike from one of the other main full-size electric motorcycle manufacturers, Italian marque Energica. Yes, apologies for any appalling attempts at Italian pronunciation, but as a linguist by subject of study, I can't resist but have a go at pronouncing things, even if I end up inadvertently insulting someone's grandmother in the process by stressing the wrong syllable. On Friday the 13th of August, I attended a press day with friend and fellow biker and EV advocate James Coates at the excellent GridServe electric forecourt in Braintree, Essex. The day was organised by the English Electric Motor Company and was set up to present the latest iterations of the Energica models to the press. The English Electric Motor Company, or EEMC, who are fronted by the very affable Alex Sharp and are based in Diss, officially in Norfolk, although the company HQ falls over the boundary inside Suffolk, have specialised in electric motorcycles since 2010. The EEMC is no longer merely a dealership stocking a range of electric motorcycles from a range of manufacturers, but is also now the official UK partner of Energica in the UK. Okay, so the footage we're watching right now shows James and me as we headed out from the GridServe electric forecourt. We just discussed briefly who should lead initially, and I suggested he lead initially as I had a phone mount on the bike I was riding, and so I could guide us back from wherever we ended up. We didn't know the area or have any route planned, so it was just a case of heading out and seeing where we ended up. The bike model James and I rode was the Eva, or probably Eva Ribelle model, Ribelle meaning rebel in Italian. The Eva Ribelle is the naked version of the Energica Ego, or probably Eco, the company's racing model, with the only differences being the riding position, which is slightly more upright, and the top speed, which is limited to 125 miles per hour compared to the 150 miles per hour limit on the Eco. Like all three bike models in the Energica range, the Eva Ribelle's biggest feature, which sets it apart from the offerings of Zero, is its ability to rapid charge using CCS. More on that shortly. Energica are really the flagship of Europe's entry into the design and production of electric motorcycles. Blessed with Italian design flair, and with perhaps more than a slight nod to Energica's compatriots at Ducati, they very much rise to the challenge of combining cutting-edge electric vehicle technology in motorbikes whilst retaining a conventional look so as not to alienate what is traditionally a fairly conservative market. By way of a little background, the Energica bike started as the eCRP project within Italian manufacturing company CRP Group in 2010, before it was officially launched as the Energica Motor Company in 2014. The bike platform originated in an electric racing bike, designed from scratch in just 6 months. The process of creating the bike benefited from parent company CRP's expertise in additive manufacturing and use of innovative materials, which provided for rapid development. Following 2 years working on the racing bike, a road version was created. Energica's CEO, Livio Ciavolini, has stated that the company's involvement in racing has given them an advantage in product development due to the demands of the racing environment. This leaves the company in the position of being one of less than a handful of electric motorcycle companies offering a viable and importantly buyable electric motorbike with DC rapid charging incorporated via the emerging, or more accurately now settled standard, in Europe at least, of CCS. This sets Energica aside from our Californian friends at Zero, who, while successful, have to date stubbornly maintained their attachment to AC charging and consequently slower charge times, following initial unsuccessful attempts to incorporate the other common DC charging standard, CHAdeMO. And despite a barrage of comments from Zero owners over recent years, yours truly included, begging for the company to incorporate true DC rapid charging into a bike, the company remains apparently unwilling to do so. That's not to say that Zero aren't right to stick to their guns in this respect. The merits or disadvantages of doing so are beyond the scope of this video. But there is nevertheless a demand among electric motorcycle owners to have access to the same kind of charging speeds, or at least charging times, available to electric cars. However, the point of this video is not to berate Zero for not listening to the weight of existing and potential customers crying out for DC rapid charging, but to talk about the latest iteration of the Energica bikes, with particular reference to the Eva Ribelle I'm riding here. I'm not going to spend time talking about the onboard operating system or controls in this video, as our time was limited and it was more important to get out and ride on this occasion, but I'll run through some of the main specifications and features. So, in terms of range, the claimed ranges, supposedly carried out in real world conditions on real road surfaces, are 261 city miles, 153 combined miles, and 123 extra urban miles, or 420, 246 and 198 kilometres respectively. I can't verify those on the basis of this ride, but the figures look perfectly realistic to me. Remember, this is a 21.5 kilowatt hour battery on this updated version of the bike, which is almost on a par capacity wise with our 2013 Nissan Leaf, but the bike does weigh considerably less than the car. Speaking of which, the bike weighs in at a reduced 260 kilograms or 573 pounds, 10 kilograms less than the previous version of the bike, despite having a much larger battery capacity. Key changes in the latest versions of the three Energica models are in the new EMCE motor and inverter, which have enabled the company to reduce the weight and service intervals whilst increasing the peak power to 126 kilowatts or 169 horsepower, sustained power to 110 kilowatts or 147 horsepower, and with torque at 215 newton meters or 159 pound-feet. The changes in the motor and inverter result in improved performance and efficiencies, which in turn deliver lower working temperatures, and all this means that combined transmission and motor oil changes are now only required every 18,600 miles, or 30,000 kilometres. So the distance you can ride between these services has more than tripled compared to the previous generation, and these are supposedly far easier procedures to carry out. This all amounts to a 0 to 60 miles per hour or 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time of 2.8 seconds. In terms of riding modes, the bike has urban, eco, rain and sport modes, and 4 separately configurable levels of regenerative braking: low, medium, high and off. I had the bike set in sport mode with maximum regenerative braking throughout the ride, and I barely touched the front brake lever at all. Any physical braking I did was predominantly rear brake slow riding stuff. A nice little feature which I'm sure can prove useful is the parking assistant forward and reverse slow speed mode, although I didn't have cause or occasion to try this out on this ride. Okay, it's time for me to shut up for a while and to share some roadside footage James shot of me doing some flypasts. Well, with a sound like this, what else should they be called?
So we just stopped to get some footage of John whizzing past on the Energica. He's already told me that it sounds amazing. My word. Sounds like a rocket. Too quick for me, John.
It's a beauty.
Like it.
Oh, I like that.
It sounds amazing.
It does, doesn't it?
Amazing.
Yeah. Cheers, bud.
I tried to get you
tried to get you to go past like this. I went like this, the first one. I went. Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? A little more information regarding the battery then. Of the 21.5 kilowatt hours indicated capacity of the lithium polymer battery, 18.9 kilowatt hours is usable. Those familiar with electric vehicles will appreciate that batteries tend to leave part of the battery unused. This provides for better longevity and charging speeds, and is perfectly normal. Expected life of the battery to 80% of capacity is 1200 cycles based on 100% depth of discharge, i.e. full charge and discharge equivalent. So even if you were to fully charge and discharge the bike twice a week, you'd be good for over 11 years. The bike warranty is 2 years and the battery warranty is 3 years or 31,000 miles, that's 50,000 kilometers. Regarding charging the bike, the options available are of course rapid charging using DC or slow charging on AC. Rapid charging on DC, you can expect a 20 to 80% charge in around 40 minutes. I didn't get to try this, but all I do know is that the bike I rode had been ridden down from Yorkshire the same morning I rode it, and had already been out before I got to ride it. Between test rides, the bike was put on the CCS charger. It was on 70% when I got on it. The AC charge option actually charges at a reasonable 3 kilowatts, which is twice as fast as the Zero DSR's onboard AC charger, although half the speed of the DSR's optional charge tank. Significantly, that also makes the Energica bikes twice as fast at AC charging as the other main DC charging competitor, the Harley-Davidson Livewire. The bike can be set to stop charging the battery at a predetermined level. It's widely recognised in EV circles that long-term life of a battery can be extended further by not always fully charging the battery and leaving it sat for prolonged periods at a full state of charge. The early Nissan Leafs offered this feature too, albeit set to a static 80% rather than being configurable. Onto the components which make up the bike, we have a steel tubular trellis frame with a cast aluminium swing arm. The wheels are cast aluminium, or aluminum for our friends across the pond, and 3.5 by 17 inches to the front and 5.5 by 17 inches to the rear. Front suspension is 43mm Marzocchi with adjustable rebound and compression damping and spring preload, and biturbo monoshock with adjustable rebound and spring preload on the rear. As for the brakes, we have Brembo double floating 330mm discs to the front with 4 piston radial calipers, and a Brembo 240mm single disc with 2 piston calipers to the rear. ABS is by Bosch. Onto the electronics, the dashboard is a 4.3 inch 480 by 272 resolution TFT colour display and includes integrated GPS receiver and Bluetooth, allowing integration with the My Energica portable app. There is an onboard vehicle control unit which constantly monitors the battery even when the bike is switched off, and the bike has the ability to report its location or last known location, signal allowing. The Eva Ribelle is available in either stealth grey or rosso corsa, so red colours. And if the standard model isn't enough, the company produces an upgraded RS version, which offers even faster 0 to 60 times of 2.6 seconds, if that 0.2 of a second really matters to you. The RS version also has an upgraded chain, RS decals, and comes with some other accessories. Beyond this, an individual bike can be further customised with carbon fibre bodywork and more besides. But as to the burning question I'm sure you're all asking, how much does it cost? Well, it's not cheap, that's for sure. For the Eva Ribelle, you're looking at a cool 25,190 of Her Majesty's pounds sterling. Depending on where you are in the world, that will differ of course, but in the UK that represents a large sum of money for a motorcycle. I'm going to come back to this shortly. And how does it compare to riding my Zero DSR? Well, the DSR is a different beast, of course. It has half the power for a start and is a lighter, taller dual sport model. And it's certainly no slouch. It's fair to say I have a great love for the DSR, and it is the bike on which I do most of my journeys. The Eva Ribelle, from the relatively little time I've spent with it, is a beast. Yes, it's a heavy beast, but that's in no way reflected in the handling. In contrast to the previous model Energica SA9 I rode a couple of years ago, I found the weighting much better and lower down, with no sense of it being top heavy. The suspension setup is better too, though that of course is largely down to individual bike setup and should in any case ideally be tailored to the rider and preferred riding. The bike feels thoroughly planted and the ride is perfectly comfortable. Initially I was aware of the slightly angular sides of the upper bodywork, or the fuel tank area, digging into the inside of my legs, but that quickly dissipated and I barely noticed it after a couple of minutes. As mentioned, drive chain on the Energica bikes is a traditional bike chain rather than the belt used on the Zero range. Naturally, this has all the pros of a chain over a belt, not likely to snap or lose teeth, and all the disadvantages. Maintenance and servicing of chain and sprockets with all the oily considerations of a chain drive, which I have to say I really don't miss on the Zero. However, the chain is reassuring when dealing with this amount of power, and it definitely helps, together with the motor, to deliver an absolutely amazing jet-like sound. There is absolutely no way anyone can say that this is a quiet bike. Compared to a conventional internal combustion engine motorbike, it's lost all the fart and gained a futuristic whistle instead. So, which is better, Energica or Zero? Well, you'd like me to give a simple answer, wouldn't you? Sorry to disappoint. The shortish answer is it's the right tool for the right job, and right budget for the right tool. As with electric cars, my advice to anyone is to appraise what they think their requirements are, and then to match these with what they actually do. Sure, you can spend £50,000 plus on an electric car with a larger battery and better range, or £25,000 on an electric car with a smaller battery but a range which is perfectly capable of doing 99% of the journeys you do. That £25,000 you'd save in the process would buy a lot of luxury long distance car rentals instead. Similarly with motorbikes, the right bike is the one which does the kind of riding you do. Power Ranger racing nuts throw themselves around roads on racing bikes in only the best weather, hardly troubling their odometer. Would-be long wayers ride their adventure bikes. Commuters manage on low power bikes or scooters, and members of the Black Widows ride their cruisers. There's no one-size solution for everyone. I've heard people who own £50,000 electric cars balk at the idea of spending £25,000 on a motorbike, but what if, like I do, you do more miles on a motorbike than you do in a car? To me, the notion of spending £50,000 on a car when I paid less than half of that for the MG ZS EV is odd, but my circumstances differ from those of people who do much more mileage in cars than I do. Suffice it to say, I could buy an MG ZS EV and an Energica Eva Ribelle and still be spending less than they are. But would I consider changing from a Zero DSR I love to an Energica Eva Ribelle? On the basis of this ride, if I can really establish that the bike will do what I hope it will do, and I can make the finances work, I probably would. And I think I'd probably go for the Eva Ribelle and put a screen on it, like the one I rode here. Luggage options need some more consideration. The standard luggage, which is the soft, rigid luggage type, wouldn't be up to serious touring, but would work fine for day-to-day stuff. But the Eco, or Ego, is not for me. As beautiful as racing bikes look, they're not my cup of tea for long rides, and while the SA9 on paper seems like the most likely candidate as a potential bike, with the most upright riding position, its looks don't really do it for me personally. The Eva Ribelle, in contrast, looks as sweet as a sweet thing, and the riding position between the SA9 and Eco was perfectly fine to my mind. A key part of riding for me is touring, and covering longer distances beyond 170 to 200 miles isn't really viable on a Zero DSR in a sensible time frame. On any such ride, I'm forced to resort to my 14-year-old Honda CBF 1000 petrol bike, on which I've ridden 90,000 miles. But I think I need to put the Energica Eva Ribelle to the test over more than just a 1-hour ride to really be sure. And on that cliffhanger, let me thank a couple of people before signing off. Thanks to James for his company, his camera work, and for driving us both down to and back from Braintree. It was enjoyable sharing the experience with him. Thanks also to Andrea from EEMC Energica for the invitation, and Alec of the same for running the day, his hospitality and conversation. Finally, thanks to you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the ride. See you again soon.